There's been a fair bit happening in politics today. Hopefully someone will get back to running the country soon. Let's bring in Susie O'Brien from the Herald Sun and Stephen Senatiempo from 2CC in Canberra. Good to talk to you both. Yeah, we had all the election carry on for so long, Susie. Now there's the swearing in for the government today and the Libs choosing their leader. So soon as it'll all be over, we can get back to sort of getting some stuff done. But what's your take first up on Sussan Ley as becoming the first opposition leader from the Liberal side as a woman?
Well, you know, the men muck it up and the women are brought in to clean up the mess. You know, that's why she was accused of being on the glass cliff, because only way is down. But look, I mean, they needed to do something about their voting patterns with women, and electing a woman is a good start. It's not everything, but it's a good start. And certainly under Sussan Ley, we will see a move to the sensible centre, which is what she calls it. The party aren't entirely united behind her. There was a very divided vote. She didn't overwhelmingly win it, but she won it, and for now that will be enough.
Yeah, I mean, I take your point about you know, ending up in the job when it's a difficult time. We've seen that before with Carmen Lawrence and Joan Kerner and others. But Stephen, The other point here is the only time Labor's had a female leader federally is when Julia sort of knifed Kevin in the back in government. They're yet to actually elect a woman as leader when they've had the chance to do so in opposition.
Yeah, look, I don't pretend to speak for all women, but I'm not convinced that female voters think that any woman will do, and unfortunately that's where we seem to end up in Australian politics. I mean, Sussan Ley's got to take her part of responsibility for the absolute capitulation the Liberal Party carried out in the election campaign as well. I think this is. You know, I think Angus Taylor would have been the least worst option in this case because obviously he's got to take his responsibility for his part too. But the victory here is not for women, it's not for the Liberal Party, it's for the factional bosses in the New South Wales division of the Liberal Party who have handpicked their leader now. And some of the dirty deals that were done behind the scenes to get Sussan Ley across the line are going to really come back to bite them in the backside over the next couple of years.
We will see. I suppose climate and energy policy might be the first test there, but I thought Sussan Ley did very well in her press conference today. She was very confident, stepped her way around a number of tricky issues. Here's just a little bit of what she had to say.
I am humbled, I am honoured, and I am up for the job. Every day we will stand up for our values to anyone, anywhere, and we'll do it in the public debate and we'll do it in the Parliament.
Now, it is true, Susie, that she hasn't been a powerful political force. She's been deputy leader. She hasn't really led any arguments on any particular issues. But then again, she has been deputy leader and a shadow minister. She's got the leadership now. There is an opportunity, isn't there, to you've just got to seize the moment and run with it. You never know what she could do.
And it was interesting too when she was asked about nuclear and she was asked about climate, and she did sort of sidestep and she said, you know, she's not going to make the captain's pick and say what should happen as of now, unlike Angus Taylor. So I think we will see someone who will, in time, certainly unite the party, be a much more moderate voice, be a lot more consultative. And look, the only way is up for the Liberals, and they desperately need to get back up there.
Well, it's horrible when there's an embarrassing image to go with a political defeat, and there are a lot of nasty people showing this footage around the place today, Stephen, of Angus Taylor. Just terrible of my producer to put that in the rundown, but he tried to open the wrong door. He tried to pull the wrong lever here when it came to the leadership. Do you think that he'll unite now behind Sussan Ley, or is this going to be trouble down the track?
Look, I don't know. Look, I think this is going to be a very divided party room. But what the coverage fails to tell you is he was one of about 6 or 7 that tried the wrong door, because it's clearly the normal door that they go in. So, you know, I mean, let's call it for what it is. But I want to go back to what Sussan Ley said there. She said, "We'll stand up for our values." What are the Liberal Party's values now? I mean, you know, that was the problem, that nobody knows what the Liberal Party stands for anymore. So it's all well and good to say you're going to stand up for values, but then sidestep all of those values when you're asked about them. So, look, I have no hope that this is going to be a good move for the Liberal Party. I think it's going to be incredibly divided. As I said, this is the factional bosses in New South Wales installing their pick, and this is not about gender or male, female or otherwise. This is about the factional bosses picking their person for the leadership so that they can dole out jobs to their underlings. So what it means is the Liberal Party has learnt nothing from this. We all say, they've got to listen to the voter, but what we really mean is they should listen to us, the commentators, who aren't listening to the voters ourselves. So let's be fair dinkum about what's happened here.
Yeah. I hope they're not listening to the factional power brokers, the Photius clan. I do want to point out something that Chris Bowen tweeted today about Ted O'Brien, who's become the Deputy Liberal leader. And Chris Bowen said that O'Brien is the author of the Coalition's spectacular failure of a $600 billion nuclear policy. They don't seem to be listening to Australians. Susie, this bloke has just been sworn in again as minister and he's still pumping out absolute lies about the nuclear option. It doesn't give us much hope for the future, does it?
Well, who knows what the Liberals are going to do? I mean, there was no overwhelming endorsement of that policy from Sussan Ley today. But what's interesting is that people do seem to be in agreement that the Liberal Party did not properly enunciate their plan for nuclear during the election campaign. In fact, they seem to be running a mile from it. So if they are going to stick with it, then, and no doubt they need to, then they need to properly enunciate what it's going to look like, how it's going to help, how it's going to impact on energy prices, what it's going to mean. Like, really flesh this out. It's not something they can just drop in and expect people to be on board for something that big. That's like a nation-building, generational idea.
But it's not just about politics, it's about reality and policy. And they and the media need to do more about pointing out, Stephen, that what we're doing at the moment is a disaster. There is no way known that our current electricity grid will see lower prices or get us to net zero or give us the power we need.
And I think 3 years from now, that'll become even more evident than it is today. So, I mean, maybe that's the best thing that has happened to the coalition here is that Chris Bowen has been reappointed as the Energy Minister. They're going to keep pushing this $600 billion line. But I think the best thing the coalition could do is actually pivot here and change their nuclear policy to simply lifting the moratorium and saying, OK, well, if you don't want the people to own nuclear production, well, then let's open it up to industry. And then, further down the track, if that works, we'll then go back and revisit the idea of publicly owned nuclear generation, which I know a lot of people are talking about this being illiberal and anti-conservative. It's not. I mean, that's the reality of it, that
we need
governments can own stuff.
Exactly, but better if it's privately funded and invested in. Thanks so much for joining us, Stephen and Susie. I appreciate it. We'll catch you next week.